Welcome to Armchair Expat, the podcast meant to get you out of your lazy boy and into your new life abroad. I'm Shannon Acton, founder of Bargain Homes Abroad, and I'm riding shotgun as we chase the dream of life beyond borders. Each episode, we'll hear stories from people who've left their comfort zone to explore the world. They'll share their highs, their lows, and their in-betweens, all meant to lovingly light a fire under your bum, so you can stop dreaming about it and start living it. So if you're stuck in your comfy recliner, scrolling through dreamy destinations, wondering what if, it's time to swap that raggedy old armchair for a one-way ticket. Let's freaking go, people. Hello, and welcome to episode 17 of the Armchair Expat podcast. I'm Shannon Acton, and today I'm joined by Caroline Chirichella, who swapped the rush of New York City for life in a small Italian mountain town. Caroline shares how she went from training as an opera singer to running a private dining business and eventually founding her own PR agency in Italy. We talk about navigating the Italian citizenship process, integrating into a new community where everyone knows your name, and building a career that helps Italian businesses reach an international audience. Caroline's story is full of honesty about the challenges, but also the joys of creating a life that feels truly her own. I'm so glad that we had this conversation. I'm so glad to share it with you today. Enjoy. Hello, Caroline. Welcome to the Armchair Expat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Shannon. I'm happy to be here.
Let's dive right in. So tell us a little bit about your background and your journey prior to moving abroad.
Okay, so I am originally from New York City, born and raised. I have a very different background from what I'm doing now. I was training to be an opera singer, involved very much deep in that world. And, just with the rush and the insanity of New York, all of that combined. And when I was 24 years old, I decided that I just didn't want to be a part of the hectic, chaotic New York City pace and the performance industry at all. And so I knew moving to Italy was always in my background. And so that was at 24 years old when I started that long journey.
Okay. So how did you always know that Italy was in your background? Is it your
Well,
country?
I am Italian American, and growing up, it was something in my blood, growing up with my family and seeing the connection that Italians have with their family. I grew up with in a very small way. Growing up, it was just my mom, my dad, and my maternal grandmother. But my maternal grandmother, when she would talk about her father, who was born in Italy, and the connection they had, the family that they had, the community that they had, that was something that I always craved and that I always wanted to see for myself, that I never had growing up in New York. I grew up in a 25-story apartment building with 15 or 20 apartments on each floor where people didn't even say hello to their neighbors. And so I was just looking for something that was a complete opposite. And so Italy, just again, I'm Italian American. I'm an Italian citizen as well. I feel it was just always in my path. It was just meant to be.
Okay. So you moved on, you have citizenship. Did you have to apply for that, or did you already have that prior to moving?
I had to apply when I first started coming to Italy because I actually came here a few times before the idea of moving when I was singing in some opera festivals. But so when I decided to come here, I asked my mom, I said, hey, you know what? I think we should do this. We have citizenship through Jure Sanguinis, which is when you get it by bloodline. And so we went on that path that my mom, everybody got their citizenship basically.
Nice. And how was that process? How did you find that process? Relatively straightforward?
Long. It took maybe 3 years. I honestly don't remember the exact timeline, but it was initially frustrating just because I know this sounds silly, but when you want something so badly, you want it to be quick and painless. And it was painless, but it was not quick. And so just wanting to get here and being able to stay here as a citizen, and therefore not needing visas and reapplying and permesso di soggiorno, all that stuff that comes along with coming to live here if you're not a citizen, it was it just required a lot of patience, which I'm really glad I was able to have because it all worked out well. I have my citizenship, and it's just been a life changer being here.
Okay. So when you were going through the process of determining where in Italy you wanted to settle, how did you decide where you wanted to go?
Well, this is a long story, which I will try to keep nice and brief so that it's not too crazy. I knew I wanted to move to Italy. On my first visit to Italy, I was singing on the island of Ischia, and I just loved how beautiful and slow paced, and la dolce vita. That's what everybody coming to Italy wants to find. And so I knew I wanted to get to Italy. I didn't know exactly where. So for the first few trips to Italy, I went to Florence because I also went to cooking school in Florence. I also was studying it a bit there. And so I thought, oh, Florence is great because there's a lot of English speaking people. There's the university scene. Florence is Florence. Everybody loves Florence. So on my first trip that I came to Italy specifically in mind to look to purchase something, I had Florence in mind and my heart was set in Florence. But as luck would have it, my mom was going to be joining me on that trip. One day, my mom was home and she was watching a program called House Hunters International, and she saw an episode that featured a town called Guardia San Framondi, which is a little small mountain town an hour outside of Naples. And it just looked so peaceful and so relaxing. And there had already been a little buzz about a bit of an expat community. And my mom said, why don't we add that to the trip just to take a look? Because it's around an hour and a half away from the small town that my great-grandfather was born in. So we thought, oh, that would be nice. And so we came to Guardia San Framondi, and within a few days, we were hooked. I knew this was a different place than I thought I was looking to settle, because when I really sat down and thought, this is the complete opposite of how I live now. It's a rural community. There's an agriculture aspect to everything here. There's vineyards. There's people that, the tractors you see out in the morning. You see the people walking with their sheep, so traffic has to come to a halt. And it's a small town. It's less than 5,000 people. Everybody knows everybody. And I thought, this is completely different than Florence. If I move to Florence, as beautiful as it is, and I go to Florence a few times a year for work, I love Florence, but that's not how I want to live full time. I don't want to be someplace where everybody speaks English. I don't want to be someplace where I'm catered to just because I'm an American. And I want to live somewhere where there's more of a sense of community and that small town aspect. And again, the town I live in has 5,000 people. Everybody knows everybody. When I go into stores or cafes or restaurants, they say hello to my children by name. Everybody looks out for one another. This is a town where if you're in trouble, if you need help, if you've had an emergency, and for some reason family's not around, so many people will come to your aid. And I've been in that position myself. And so that is what I was looking to have, because I never had that community growing up.
Was that so vastly different lifestyle, like you said? How was the transition to that? It couldn't have been an easy overnight transition.
Honestly, it was easier than I would have expected. I guess because I was at the point when I left New York, I had stopped studying in the world of opera, and I was actually working as a private chef, and I had my own catering company, and I was working really long hours, would get home so tired and exhausted, no time for a social life, being on the train or the bus or in a cab at midnight, 1 o'clock. And I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I want a different lifestyle. I don't want to be part of a million people in a big, crazy city. I want to be someplace where I can decide my own happiness, where I can live peacefully, where I don't have to be part of the rat race 24/7. And so while you would think it must have been a hard transition, I think I was so ready for something that was completely different than I had growing up in New York. I grew up, again, New York City. I had an amazing childhood. I really did. We took such full advantage of being in New York and doing everything that New York had to offer. But I was at the point that it just started to feel too chaotic and too crazy. And that's not a fun way to live for me, being a part of that kind of insanity. Where I live now, I don't worry about the safety of my children. I don't worry about if I'm out to dinner one night by myself, walking home alone. I don't worry if my mom is going to go home by herself one night after watching the kids. So, and that for me is everything. So, in a weird way, you would think the transition was hard. And if I'm being superficial, the things that I miss most are materialistic things. I miss shopping at Target. I miss being able to order Chinese takeout 24/7. And I miss Ben and Jerry's ice cream. So the stuff that I miss, you adapt to, obviously. So it's not, I don't miss New York itself and everything that New York was.
So, how did you kind of integrate into the community there? What were some strategies you used once you moved there to get to know people and find your community?
Yeah. Well, luckily, where the place I live has been such a welcoming community. It really, that to me is what makes the town I live in stand out. It's the people that make this town special. It's a beautiful place to live, but it's the people. So when I first got here and I was looking to buy a house, and eventually when I needed help with that whole process, or if I needed help changing over a water bill, there were so many people who were excited at the idea of having some new blood in the town because, again, it's a small town, 5,000 people. So when word got out that more Americans, because I'm not the only American that live here. In recent years, there have probably been over 100 or so Americans that have moved here. When word got out that Americans were coming, a lot of people were excited to have that new blood and to see a bit of a renaissance in the town. Because our town has a beautiful centro storico, which had been abandoned when there had been an earthquake in the 80s. And so to see a revival of that and seeing people come to a place that were excited to be here and seeing something that a lot of the locals themselves didn't see, and they say it themselves, like, oh, why are you here? Why did you choose to come here? So I think it makes a lot of these people proud to see what so many of us have seen. And so when I got here, there was always somebody, if I needed a lift somewhere, if I needed help translating, because I did not speak the language when I first got here, if I needed help setting something up in my house. And that is basically the entire community. The community here, everybody knows everybody. So many people are related or work with one another. Most of the businesses here are family run businesses. And I think that that is part of what makes this place, this community stand out so much. And so it wasn't much of a challenge finding my community because I feel like I was just naturally entering into one, if that makes sense, because this was already a community that was so open and so welcoming and so giving. So they were just happy to have other people join them.
I think that's beautiful. And I did, as you were talking, I was like, oh, you must have spoke Italian going in, but if you didn't, then how did that communicate?
It was a challenge at first. But the best advice that I would give anybody, if they're looking to learn whatever language it is to just immerse yourself completely and do things that make you uncomfortable. Because some people make the mistake of not wanting to learn the language when they move someplace. And for me, that's a big mistake because if you're looking to move and completely integrate into a community, you have to speak the language. So I made it a point to push myself and make myself uncomfortable in the sense that I would go to a bar and I would make it a point to try to talk with people. I wanted people to come up to me and ask who I was, what was I doing there, what was anything about me, because I wanted to test my abilities. And it was a challenge. It really was a challenge. I remember one night being invited to go out for pizza with a group of people. And it was around 10 people, but Italians talk a lot. The night was eating and drinking and fun. And after 2 hours, I had such a headache because I couldn't keep up with it because I was getting by speaking very basic, but not able to keep up with a full conversation between 10 people back and forth. So after that night, I thought I really have to focus a little more. And from that point, again, I just I never studied formally, to be honest. But again, because I have a background in opera, I knew a little bit here and there, but I made it a point of immersing myself. And when people would try to speak to me in English, I'd say, no, I don't want you to speak to me in English. I need to speak in Italian here. We're in Italy. I need to adapt here and not the other way around. And then after being here just a year, I met who is now my husband, who is Italian. And I will admit that having somebody 24/7 that speaks the language did certainly help. But again, my advice would just be push yourself even further than you think you can go, even if it scares you, even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if it gives you a headache, because you have to put in the hard work. And if it's something that you really want, it'll be worth it.
And you mentioned that you have children. How has it been raising children in a different culture, kind of in comparison to what it would have been like in New York City?
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't have my children. My children have never been in America. So I don't know. I know this sounds funny, how I would have raised them in America because I never got the opportunity, even that little touch. However, I do know sometimes as a mom, being a mom can be somewhat scary, isolating if you don't have that kind of connection with other moms. So sometimes I feel speaking in Italian, sometimes I can't quite communicate the same way, just naturally, because it's my second language that I speak, that I would say venting to an American friend. So there has sometimes been a bit of that challenge with the mom culture and being a mom, raising two young children here. But I've connected with a lot of the Italian moms here, and they're all wonderful. All kids have play dates, running around, and we talk as much as we can. But it's one of those things that, again, I think because being a mom is something so personal that having that connection sometimes when it's in a second language can be a bit of a struggle.
What have been, in your mind, the biggest challenges you've had in relocating to, not necessarily to Italy in general, as kind of being a foreigner in
Mhm.
a new land? What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced?
The biggest challenges are just learning to let go of your old life. Because as an American, a lot of Americans come in expecting things to be the way they were in America and wanting people to adapt when it's the opposite. I did not come here because I wanted everything to be American and I didn't want people to adapt for me. But with that in mind, certain things, I know this sounds funny. Again, in the town I live, there's not a 24-hour pharmacy here. Getting a doctor on a call sometimes is not as easy as it was in America. So these are things that to me initially were a little like, why isn't the doctor picking up? I'm calling, I'm calling, I'm calling. And in America, that would never happen. Voicemail services, there's always a way to get in touch with the doctor basically 24/7. And that's not the case here. And even with that, Italians, understandably, and that's part of La Dolce Vita, their lifestyle is a much more slow pace. They take things at a completely different pace than we do. And again, that is what contributes to them living longer and having the more relaxed lifestyle that we Americans crave. But coming into it from New York City, which is so fast paced, where if you need something done, it's done within 20 minutes, where if you need a response from somebody, they respond. That can be a challenge. So you have to basically work around it because I don't expect anybody to work around me just because I'm an American. And so sometimes when I call a doctor and they don't pick up, I just have to make a bit of an effort and call a few more times. There is no 24-hour pharmacy in our town. There's one in the next town over. So it's just one of those things always in the back of my mind. Okay, if I need it, it's there. It's a 20-minute ride, but it's not literally across the street like it was growing up in New York City, you know? So those are some of the challenges. Obviously, adapting, learning the language was a challenge initially because I even remember on one of my first days here, connecting with a woman who had been living here for 5 years, and I heard her speaking fluent Italian, and I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to, because I was so impressed by it. And I hadn't grown up bilingual. I mean, obviously hearing other languages, of course, in New York, but hearing somebody speak a second language so fluently with the locals, I really remember thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to make the effort to do that. I'm not the type to sit down and study formally. So I was concerned about that. But again, these are challenges that one accepts when moving to a new country. And then ideally everything kind of falls into place, which luckily for me it did.
Yeah. How long would you say that transition took place? How long before you felt comfortable in your new environment?
I'd say it took around a year or two, because initially I felt somewhat out of place as a young American, as a woman, was like I didn't know where I fit in because was I going to be part of the Americans that were there? But a lot of the Americans that were here were more retiree age. So I felt, oh, but do I really fit in there? But are the young Italians going to want to hang out with me because I don't speak the language yet and I'm American? So it was kind of like one of those weird limbo places initially. But again, now I'm part of the expat community here. Everybody's so wonderful. And I'm as much a part of the Italian community as well, especially since having kids, because, you have kids, you meet the other moms, the parents, park and everything. But so it took a few years, but it's now I feel home now. I feel home. This is home for me.
Hey, hey, hey. I'm so excited to share some really big news. Armchair Expat now has a sister brand called Move Abroad Now, which I'm building with Dr. Colleen Crowley of International Family Life. Why is this important? Because it really ties into what you're listening to this podcast for. Here you get to hear real stories from people who've made the leap. But these stories are meant to inspire you, but inspiration alone isn't enough, is it? And that's where Move Abroad Now comes in. We're creating the tools to help you move from listening to doing. Getting out of that armchair, huh? Most relocation resources stop at logistics. Yeah, visas, housing, paperwork. But what really determines whether your move succeeds is mindset and emotional readiness. And as an expat herself, Dr. Colleen has guided private clients and even written a best-selling workbook on choosing your perfect country. And together, we're building resources that blend the practical and the psychological so you can thrive, not just survive abroad. And as part of our soft launch, we've created a free guide for you. It's called From Stuck to Ready, 3 Steps to Overcome the Biggest Obstacles Stopping You from Moving Abroad. Long title, huh? This workbook walks you through a simple framework to cut through the overwhelm, reframe your fears, and start building real momentum towards your dream life overseas. And like I said, it's our free gift to you. So if you've been waiting for the right time to move abroad, hey, guess what? This is it. Download your copy today at moveabroadnow.co/subscribe. That's moveabroadnow.co/subscribe. Or check the link in our show notes. Because listening to these stories is motivating and all, but now it's time to start writing your own next chapter.
Yeah. So how would you describe your daily life now in comparison to what it was like in New York?
Well, daily life now that I have kids is a completely different story, obviously, because I didn't have kids in New York. But I get to choose how my days go here. And that was not the case in New York. Obviously, growing up in New York City, then when I was either studying opera or I had my catering business, was fast paced, get up and go, dealing with clients, whether, again, when I had my catering business and I was dealing with private clients and cooking and shopping and, stock lists. And then when I had been studying opera and was on auditions and dealing with voice coaches and agents, and those two worlds, the culinary and the performing world, were kind of similar in that they were very fast paced, very high speed. Here, that's not the case. Here, I run my own business. I make my own hours. I work from home. I get up, I get my daughter ready for school. I get my son ready for the day. I can start the day at my own pace and how that needs to be. I can take my daughter to school, then take my son to the park to play. And then my day is spent on calls with clients, researching, writing pitches, speaking to editors, on all different kind of calls. That I have a public relations agency. And my specialty is working with female-run businesses and Italian-focused businesses. So I'm very lucky to be able to get to plan my entire day around the schedule of my children. And that leaves time for me to have all my client work and everything that I need to do for my business, but still pick up my daughter at school, bring her to the park afterwards, go out for pizza with my family. And it's a completely different pace from, the last year when I was in New York, I was working as very stressful, obviously, working in amazing homes in New York City with, high-end clients, what can I say, that had high expectations and weren't looking to be your friends at all, which is fine. But so it just every day started to become such a routine for me when I was doing that, I had to plan my menus for clients to approve, and I had to do my grocery shopping and my stock list for the kitchens, and was working for hours and hours and hours and getting home late. And it just became so routine and so stressful. Here, that's not the case. My life is not routine. It's not stressful. And I get to choose how my day goes, basically.
Before we get into your starting your business in PR, which you touched
Mhm.
on, I wanted to ask what came up for me was like, how has your kind of mental and physical health changed? So you lived a very high stress lifestyle, and now that you've kind of decompressed and gone to a different kind of chosen slower pace, have you seen a difference in your health mentally,
I
physically, and
mean, if I'm being honest, not as much as I would have maybe thought. Part of that obviously also deals with my specific personality. I'm a person that has anxiety. It's just what I got growing up in New York City, quite frankly. And then being here during the pandemic, quite frankly, did not help my anxiety. Raising a young child at the time, my daughter was just a year and a half. So it's been kind of up and down. But again, I don't think that has anything to do with being in Italy itself, because that's just genetics, quite frankly. That's my own battle to fight. But my physical health is great. Basically, I think it has to do with adapting to the slower life here. We also live in an area that's I'm sure you've heard like the blue zone, where when people live older, and a lot of the blue zones have a lot of steep hills. And where I live, there are a ton of steep hills. So every day, whether it's with my son or with my daughter or by myself or with my husband, I make a point to take a walk out in the natural air, get some sunlight, breathe in because we live in the mountains. The air is so fresh here. And I make a point to go up all these hills in town. So my physical health it's always been very good, I have to say. Mental health, again, anxiety, I think also kind of comes with the territory, even being an expat to a certain level, because you're going through such a huge transition. So even if it is going well and you're enjoying it, there are moments that I think, just based on making such a huge life change, that your mental health will feel that.
have you ever had that "what have I done" moment? So can you tell us about it?
Honestly, no, I haven't.
Okay.
I really haven't. Because I will admit, again, after moving here, I met who was now my husband, after just a year. We were together for a year, got engaged after another 6 months, married after 6 months, got pregnant. So I never had a moment where I thought, oh my God, what have I done? Because everything fell into place and felt so natural for me.
Beautiful. So you came from kind of your catering business, and then did you bring that over into Italy as well and then transitioned into public relations?
Well, this is why sometimes I get even confused hearing myself talk with how many transitions I've had. So I did bring my catering business to Italy. For the first few years, I ran a pop-up restaurant in my home, because our old home had an amazing terrace with views of the mountains. It was gorgeous. So we ran a little pop-up restaurant for 2, 3 years, I'd say. And it was wonderful. I loved doing it. Then when I got pregnant with my daughter, I had a tough pregnancy with all sicknesses and everything, so I couldn't imagine cooking or anything. And so I got back to my old love, which was writing. And I started writing essays and just getting into that. My dad is also a writer, but my dad is also in public relations. And after writing for a few years, I kind of accidentally got into public relations, because a friend of mine at the time was looking for a PR rep, and she wanted to get on a call with my father. And I got on the call with her just to talk it through. And after the call, my dad wasn't able to accept her as a client because he didn't have space. And I said to my friend, I said, hey, listen, you know what? I grew up around my father. I'm very familiar with public relations and communication strategy and that world. Through my own work as a writer, I am used to pitching myself. I'm used to speaking with editors and journalists and reporters and writers. So I know that how that functions. So I said, why don't I try to do this for you? And that was 4 years ago. And I now work with my father as well. We work together. But it's been great because I love doing this kind of work where people come to me and they have a business that they want to receive media attention for, whether it's, podcasts or articles or quotes in magazines. And I'm very lucky to be doing what I do. I love working with my dad as well. So it's one of those careers that, because my dad my dad has been in PR for more than 30 years at a very high level. And I always growing up, I heard him talk about PR so much. And I was like, oh, I don't think I'll ever do that. I'll never do that. And so it's funny now that I'm not only doing public relations, but that I'm working with my dad, but I love it. I love it. And I think I even say to some of my clients, I think it's because I myself was involved in two careers, the theater industry and culinary industry, where I know what it's like to want to receive recognition for my work. So it puts me in a better position when I'm working one-on-one with my clients and they say to me, hey, this is my business. This is what I'm going for. How can you help me be seen for that? How can you help me get in the spotlight, essentially? And I think because I had my moment in the spotlight doing that kind of work, and now I don't want to do that anymore. I love that the tables have turned, that now I can get my clients the recognition that they deserve.
You've started businesses in both countries. How has it been different in starting a business in Italy?
Honestly, I haven't found the transition quite as difficult. Okay, so two ends. My business, again, I work with Italian clients and American clients. The transition has been somewhat smooth. The only thing is, I find sometimes just basic essentials when running a business have been a little more of a challenge running it from Italy, working remote hours, dealing with time schedule differences because of the time zones. For me, more from a business sense, again, I live in a really small town. I don't get that opportunity to network and be out there physically as much as I might like to grow my business, so to see other people that are in the same position that I am. But again, that's what, online stuff is for. But having a business in New York City was just very, very fast paced, very stressful, just 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Here, that is not the case for what I do. I work one-on-one with my clients. I have a set amount of hours that we dedicate to each client per month. And what I love also about the clients that I work with, we're usually on the same page about what we're doing. And again, I even say that because I'm a young woman running a business myself. My specialty is working with female businesses and Italian businesses as well, because more recently I've had a lot of Italian businesses reaching out to me because they want to be seen in the American marketplace. And the funny thing is, with the Italian clients, and this is where it would differentiate when working strictly in America. In America, when, for example, with my catering, people came to me, they knew what they wanted. They knew what their goal was. Here in Italy, if I'm working with Italian businesses, I have found that a lot of them are not quite sure what public relations is and how it can be beneficial to them. And that's, I guess, why they reach out to me, because they say, I'm not really sure what public relations is, but I want to know how I might be able to use this to my advantage, because we have, a product that we're trying to sell, or we're a new agriturismo, and we want to attract the American clientele. So I find myself explaining to them what it is that I do. Whereas again, in America, you normally wouldn't have potential clients reaching out to you and saying, hey, I want to work with you, but I don't actually know what you do.
Do you have any tips for anyone who is looking to kind of, in their move abroad, start their own business? Tips in general, like how to go about getting themselves seen?
Luckily, in this day and age, living in such a tech world has been a huge benefit, because like I said, I moved here. I started a business. I don't live in Milan or Rome or Florence where it would be easier to make connections, have that personal one-on-one connection with people that you meet that just you randomly start up a conversation with that are looking to start a business. So I feel basically through networking, even online, creating an online presence, and even just connecting with other people that are in the same boat as you, speak to other people who have started businesses, see the path that they have followed, reach out to people. Again, put yourself, much like with being an expat, put yourself in positions that maybe make you a little uncomfortable. Just ask questions, ask for advice, and just, this is really generic, but just to go for it, because you're not going to know if it'll work out unless you go for it. And running a business is tough, whether you're in America or whether you're in Italy. And it's one of those things that you learn to adapt kind of like on each basis. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that if you have your heart set on it, especially if you're looking to move to another country and looking to start a business, whatever the business may be, know that it's not going to be easy at all times. Know that there are going to be some times when you're like, oh my God, why did I start this business? What am I doing? It's too much of a challenge. It's too much of a challenge because of the time zone, and I'm not finding the right clientele. Just keep going for it. Don't stop. Quite frankly, again, I started my business 4 years ago. I don't have a huge social media presence. I don't have a website. I have grown my business through word of mouth, through referrals, through LinkedIn, and it's happened very organically. So I know it's funny. I don't want to downplay sometimes the old school way of doing things naturally, as opposed to sometimes when people are starting a business and they have to put so much work into it, as well they should. But again, it's happened very naturally for me. And it's funny because recently I was on a call with another PR executive, and I said, who's in a much higher position than I am. It was a networking call. And I said, well, do you think I need a website? Because I told her a bit about my background and everything. And she said, if what you're doing is working for you and you constantly have a constant stream of new clients, then no, because it's working. And otherwise, you're just going to add another step that you don't need.
Yeah, and that's how we connected, is through LinkedIn too.
Exactly. We connected through LinkedIn. And recently, quite frankly, I've had people reach out to me through LinkedIn, through Instagram, through Facebook, through other clients that have referred me, and through friends of friends. So it's one of those things that don't downplay just growing organically, as opposed to putting so much stress into building everything up front for people to discover you, when there are natural ways that people will find you if they want to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you will attract the people that are meant to find you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what if you could give one piece of advice to someone thinking about moving abroad, because many in this audience are in that ideation stage of, oh, it would be nice, I don't know where to go yet. What's the one piece of advice you would give to us?
Would just say, don't put it off any longer and just go for it. I know that might be a bit extreme because obviously I don't want to downplay what a big step moving abroad is. Starting a new life. You're starting a new life. When you move away from your own country, or when you move away from wherever it is that you've called home since you were born, it's jarring. It's jarring. You live in a place where you don't know anybody. You don't speak the language. You don't have family or friends next door immediately. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't know where you're going. That's scary. It really is scary. But if there's that little part in your brain that says, oh my God, you know what? I want to move to Italy, or I want to move to Spain, or I want to move to France. That is there for a reason, that you clearly have an itch that needs to be scratched. And if you're questioning that, there must be a reason for it, whether it's you don't enjoy the life that you have now, or you just want to do a complete change of life and say, you know what, I've been here 10 years. I want to do something different. I want to move on. So if there's that voice in the back of your head that's saying, oh my God, I want to move XYZ, it's there for a reason. And I feel life is only once. We only get one shot at this. You never want to have that moment where you think, I didn't do that. Because sometimes if I think, had I not done this, I get emotional thinking about it because then I wouldn't have my family that I have here. And I'm not saying that that's the path for everybody. That's not at all it. That's not it. But you don't know what you might be missing out on if you don't take the chance. And that's a big thing in general in life. But you don't know what opportunity you're going to miss out on by not taking that leap. So if there's even that little bit that's saying, oh my God, is it crazy? Am I going to be able to do it? Can I actually pull this off? Is it going to be too much of a financial commitment? Is it going to be too much of a challenge for the language? Is it going to be too much of a bureaucracy issue? Just do it. If it's meant to work out, it'll work out. And I don't say this lightly. And if it doesn't work out and you change paths, that's okay too. Because moving to a new country and settling there for good is not for everybody. It is challenging. But just if there's that voice, you have to listen to your voice. You owe it to that voice.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's the fear that talks. It talks us out of doing things. It's kind of like you can make all the excuses in the world, or I can't afford it, or I don't have a way of earning income if I move abroad, or there's so many things and excuses you can come up with, but that seed of desire that's there is there for a reason. And until you can get over those fears, until you can actually, and that's why I wanted to start this podcast, is really to kind of show different stories of different people who have done it and shown that it is possible. It is. And to plant that seed in people and go, oh, I relate to that person.
Yes.
If they could do it, I could do it. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's such a valuable piece of advice. It's so simple, and yet it's not easy.
No. Well, if I may also just touch on one really important thing, because when you said we let fear hold us back, fear was a big part of my concern in the sense that I am scared of flying. Okay. I do not like flying at all. It's an intense fear. So sometimes I think, had I not, my first trip to Italy, before I started coming here looking for a place to live, again, when I was singing in an opera festival, I almost wasn't going to come because I didn't think I was going to be able to get on a plane. I was too scared. And I'm so grateful that I didn't let that fear get in my way, because had I not gotten on that plane, had I not gone to Ischia, which is what started this whole love affair with the idea of living in Italy and being immersed here, then the life I have now, I don't think I'd have. So you're right when you say we do let fear get in our way. So we just sometimes have to be a little stronger than that fear, even if it's just a tiny, tiny bit, and not let fear stand in our way of living our lives.
Yeah, definitely. And it's baby steps. It doesn't all have to happen in a month.
No.
Yeah, there's lots of alternatives. There's lots of options. And also want to touch on something you said. It's everything is reversible, right? Our whole life is about change. You can't stop change, and you get to make that choice from here forward. So if it doesn't work out, that's okay.
Exactly.
You try. You're not going to be 80-year-old, 89, maybe hopefully 105 on your deathbed going, gosh, really wish I would have done XYZ. So
Exactly. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you touched on it, Shannon. I mean, life is about change. We're not meant to stay in the same position forever. We have to evolve. We have to make mistakes. We have to learn from them. So, just go for it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you tried it, and that's what counts.
And that is the perfect place to end. So I want you to share where people can find you if they want to hire you to help with their public relations, if they just want to kind of scope out your Instagram. Where can everyone find you?
Okay, so if they want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn at Caroline Chirichella. I'm on Instagram at Caroline Chirichella PR. And I'm on Facebook as well, but I don't even know if anybody uses Facebook anymore. But again, I don't have a website.
Thank you so much for joining us. This was a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad that we connected and that you could share your story, and you really have inspired me. And I hope inspired everyone else too. So
Well, thank
you.
you. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And that's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening and spending some time with us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Make sure to follow the show and leave a review. It will really help others find us. And if you're dreaming about a life abroad or already living it, I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Instagram at bargainhomesabroad or on our website, www.bargainhomesabroad.co. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and I'll see you back in the armchair soon. Bye-bye.